You're listening to Nostalgia Club, the podcast where we look back on our favorite childhood stories and revisit them as adults. At least one of us hasn't read or watched these series, so we also get a first-timer's opinion. Spoiler alert, we will be discussing storylines and future events beyond the first books and episodes, so proceed with caution.
Hello, my name is Jino Jang, and I belong in the Hermes cabin.
Whoa!
You gotta do your thing.
Oh, this
Now
is
you
an
gotta pick.
out-of-pocket opening!
Pick one.
Oh, gosh. I feel like Victoria's brain is flying in a million directions at this point. Oh, shoot. I don't remember everyone. My name is Michael Keene, and I belong in the Apollo cabin? Sure, the Apollo cabin.
That checks out.
That checks out.
Most creative people could probably be in the Apollo cabin, let's be real. If you like anything related to music and poetry and the creative arts, then Apollo cabin is pretty solid. I'm Victoria Chang, but I don't know what cabin I'm in.
Ah, come on.
So here's the thing. Michael picked one that he thinks he belongs in. I picked one that I aspire to be in.
Oh.
So you can do either one.
Well, last time my friends and I talked about this, they decided that I would be a child of Athena. However, I don't think I'm smart enough to be a child of Athena.
What are you talking about?
What are you
talking
They're like
about?
really, really, really smart.
Victoria, press X to doubt. It's not about smarts. It's about wisdom.
I don't
There's
think
a
I'm very
difference.
wise.
Victoria,
either.
you're plenty wise.
It's about applying the knowledge you have.
Look, we know who's holding this podcast together. Jino made a joke about me being the face of the podcast. I'm the wacky court jester. Victoria's the true face of this podcast.
Jesters had a lot of power in medieval times.
That's true.
They're often stereotyped as dumb and silly, but really they were the only ones who were allowed to insult the king because they were that smart.
When I was in middle school / high school, I decided I would be a child of Hades. But I was also kind of in my emo phase, so I don't know how much that holds up now.
Did we ever really leave the emo
That's
phase?
true, yeah. I don't know. Any of these like YA books where you like pick your strongest defining personality trait and assign yourself to a house, I was always bad at because I was like, I don't know. I don't know who I am.
Yes, Percy Jackson does do the thing where like, are you brave? Go here or whatever. But as the series goes on and as the books go on, that sort of starts to fall apart because it's not necessarily about your personality defines your birthright or vice versa, but it's about, I guess, the tools you're given. Like, yeah, the Stoll brothers are like crafty little sneak thieves, but Luke at least is gallant and honorable.
That's true.
And even after he goes evil, he doesn't become like, now I'm going to start pickpocketing everyone. Like, and there can be cruel, malicious Aphrodite kids, and there are also like kind and supportive Aphrodite kids. And there's probably a dumb Athena kid out there.
That's me.
You can be dumb and wise, according to the D&D stat block, anyway.
Well, I'll say this at least. You've read the most books out of any of us on Nostalgia Club.
Oh, wait,
I
hey,
think.
we're doing Percy Jackson.
Oh.
In case you couldn't figure it out.
Yeah, that's Jino Jang. I'm Michael Keene. Victoria, did you say your name?
I did.
Hey, here's the thing. Here's the thing about Percy Jackson. There are a million Percy Jackson podcasts out there.
Oh, yeah.
We're not going to talk about the books that we've read in preparation for this podcast. We're just going straight off vibes. This is off the cuff Percy Jackson vibes because every child and young adult in our generation has either heard or consumed this series.
Yeah.
And everyone knows what we're talking about. We don't need to tell anyone what this is. If you don't know, figure it out yourself. We're not your counselors. Welcome to camp.
Gaslight, gatekeep, Olympian boss? I don't know.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Gaslight,
Demigod
gatekeep,
boss?
and whatever the hell Zeus does.
Yeah.
Crimes.
Gaslight,
Crimes.
gatekeep, and commit crime.
Yes, for this episode, which is our last episode of season 2, we decided to do something a little different. First of all, we've wanted to cover Percy Jackson for forever, but when we were discussing how we should approach this, we were like, should we reread them and do our typical, like, we talk about the plot of the book, but like, listener, you're not here to hear us rehash the plot of Percy Jackson. You're here to talk to, well, I don't know why you're here, but I hope you're here to hear some fun stories about why Percy Jackson is awesome and why it was important to us.
Yeah, if you want to listen to the plot of Percy Jackson, podcast to podcast episode, go listen to the newest Olympian, because that's the whole premise of that.
Yeah.
He reads a chapter and then he describes the chapter, and it works.
Yeah.
Well, before we go full-blown into just chaotic discussion, let's just quickly give some background onto...
What did Percy Jackson mean to you?
Yeah, exactly.
I think I can make mine the shortest. And I say this for a reason, because when we were talking just a moment ago about like what Camp Half-Blood house we belonged in, I was thinking, oh gosh, all I have to pull on are my memories of books I haven't read in a long time. And Victoria began her portion with, well, the last time I talked about this with my friends was...
2 weeks ago.
Yeah. I will say, like countless others, these books were like huge for me and like partly defined my fantasy sentiments for a while. My mom got me the first book in high school, and it was like around the time the movie was going to come out. And I didn't see the movie, I'm pretty sure, until I like read the whole first series of 5 books. Thankfully. I thought the cast did wonderful. You know, everyone was performing at the top of their game, but they made some choices in the making of that movie, which, yes. Anyway, yeah, I read these books throughout high school, and I read the successor series, the Heroes of Olympus series, into college. There was even a good portion of time where, like, if I was going into a situation that made me nervous at all, I would always make sure to keep The Lightning Thief with me, because it was kind of like a safe zone where I could open it up and read it and, like, feel just sort of, like, at ease.
Nice.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say I would whisper a prayer to one of the gods.
I thought you were going to say that you carried a ballpoint pen around like Riptide.
Just pretend that I could slay anyone.
I mean, listen, if you have enough force behind that pen, you could do some real damage.
That's true.
I don't know. Maybe Victoria belongs in Aries.
Athena also is like
battle strategy. And that's a very tactical thing, Victoria.
Battle strategy versus running at him and yelling as hard as you can. Just the concept of violence.
Very lovely. Loved it entirely. Nothing but a good experience for me.
The first book I read was the third book, which is a weird vibe.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, wow.
That book is destroyed. I demolished that book. I did not take care of my books growing up. So, like, pages are falling out. The cover is ripped to shreds. I loved that book. And
my brother and I had copies of Percy Jackson, too, and it's not in great condition. So you're not alone there.
They've been wrecked. I was so into them that I would pray before swim classes to Poseidon and Zeus to make it rain so I wouldn't have to go.
Whoa.
That is peak
I thought it was
kid
going to be
energy.
the opposite, where you prayed to Poseidon to make you a good swimmer.
Oh, no, I didn't think about that. That's not where my mind was. I was like, I do not want this at all. I went to a midnight screening of the Percy Jackson movie. You know how many people were there? Besides us?
How many?
2. Ooh. An old man and an old woman.
Oh, I'm
Wait,
sure they
that's
were in for a
surprising.
ride.
Grandma and Grandpa out on the town, midnight screening, Percy Jackson. We knew something was wrong the second we stepped up to the theater and looked at the posters on the wall and went, oh, these are not my Percy and Jackson.
I was about to say that's surprising because back then midnight premieres were huge. Like, people would dress up for them and everything.
Yeah.
But I guess people saw the previews for this one and went, I don't need to rush to see this movie.
I don't know what's going on. It was a Thursday midnight. I can't explain it.
When you think of those like packed premieres, like for the same age range, you think of like maybe the Harry Potter franchise? Because I feel
Harry
like
Potter
I've
and
seen
like
videos.
Hunger Games were what I was thinking of.
Yeah. Maybe it just had to do with the age range of people that were reading those books and what parents would
That's
take
true.
their young kids.
Maybe they're too young.
I don't know. I mean, look, I was in high school. If I really desperately wanted it, I'm sure I could have been taken to the midnight screening,
Yeah.
but I didn't really desperately want it.
I went to a book signing in Houston with Rick Riordan, and he had just come back from visiting the set in Canada for the movie.
Oh.
And so he was telling us, I can't tell you much at all, but I think you'll like the actors. Basically, the insinuation was like, I know what you little goblins like. You'll think these people are hot, and I know that's all you care about. He didn't say that, but like, we got his meaning.
In like the kindest way.
In the kindest way. But here's the thing. There was like an air of like, 1, I can't say anything. 2, he was like, listen, I have no power. I just visited, but I'm not writing the script. He was really clear about that.
He was preparing for when the revolution came to not be against the wall.
I think he knew.
Yeah.
And my mom didn't let me stay and get my book signed.
Oh, no.
And then he stopped doing book signings.
Isn't he on a book tour?
He does book tours, but he doesn't sit there and sign every
Oh,
book
yeah.
because he learned that kids will line up for hours and
Yeah,
hours
it'll
for like
never
a 30
stop.
second interaction. And that's not good. So it was like, I'm not going to make you guys line up at all.
Yeah.
Your interaction will be me talking to you in the audience. And then we'll just have a bunch of pre-signed books that you can purchase.
That's much better.
Much better.
Yeah.
Wow, that movie really wasn't the greatest, huh? But I am curious what went down behind the scenes to make that movie what it was.
Well, KJ and Pippa dive deep into that adaptation and all the behind the scenes on Adapt or Die. They cover all sorts of stories and spin-offs on their show, like The Lightning Thief. Did he steal the lightning?
I don't know. Read the book. Did it adapt or did it die? Listen to Adapt or Die on all podcast platforms and on Patreon. I have a quip option.
Okay.
Ooh. So then you go like the Lightning Thief. As opposed to the Thunder Cop, Manhattan's loudest police officer.
I remained a Percy Jackson fan all the way through Heroes of Olympus, and I also am a huge Magnus Chase fan. I think those are my favorite out of the Roydenverse. It was a huge part of my life, and I honestly haven't picked up the books in a while, and so it's cool to be talking about them. And hey, this episode should come on right around when the Netflix show comes out, or Disney Plus, same thing.
The streaming show.
Oh, hope it's good. Hope it's good. Time will tell. Listener, you may know if it's good, and you can let us know by shouting into your phone.
We'll hear it.
We'll hear it.
Wherever we are.
What's that? Interesting take. I'll watch on my own and find my own opinion. Victoria, who is currently wearing her calf hand-blood shirt, if that gives you any indication.
So, where do I begin? Let's begin when I was in 6th grade, so 12 years old. My best friend said, hey, I really love this series called Percy Jackson. You should read it. And I read it, and that became my personality for a long time. I know I say this in a lot of our episodes where I'm like, this series that we're talking about, I was obsessed with it. But like, I guess I was just obsessed with a lot of things when I was young.
Well, the speed at which you read things,
That's
like,
true.
You've been able to pack in so many series that were your personality for a chunk of time because the sheer velocity of your reading capability, which scientifically doesn't make sense as a term, but I'm going to use it, the velocity of your reading
You
prowess.
just see faster.
Yeah.
I guess so. It was fun for me because when I started reading Percy Jackson, I was Percy's age.
Oh, nice.
And then I felt like I kind of grew up with Percy a little bit because then I continued to read The Heroes of Olympus, The Kane Chronicles. I have not read Magnus Chase yet. It's on my bookshelf right now. I need to read it. After The Heroes of Olympus ended, I was a little unhappy with the ending, but I'm okay. I've made my peace with it now because then I picked back up when The Trials of Apollo were coming out and I read that whole series. I recently read the Nico and Will book that just came out, and I also just read the new Percy Jackson book that came out where
That's
Percy's
right.
applying to college, which is wild. So yes, I can confidently say that Percy Jackson is very influential in my life. My friend and I, the one who introduced me to the series, we assigned everyone at our church a Greek god.
Which is a wonderful sentence.
We were always Apollo and Artemis. I also helped run a Percy Jackson fan project on the internet,
Yeah.
which launched careers.
Percy Jackson internet fan culture. There must be some bad parts of it. I haven't seen them.
It's mostly
great.
pretty good. Yeah.
And still
fan art.
thriving to this day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like even before the new show was announced, I feel like it was still pretty healthy in no small part due to the continued release of all of these Riordanverse books.
Mr. Riordan does not sleep. He does not eat. He writes his godly books and he helps publish other authors
Yeah.
and promote them, which is amazing.
Yeah.
What a Chad. Sorry.
The Chadwick Riordan. So you were committing sacrilege at your local church? No.
Your Percy Jackson fan project,
Right. My Percy
which we'll
Jackson
play
fan
right
project.
now.
Oh, gosh. If you're listening to this,
Look it up.
no.
For the listener's edification, Victoria has a substantial footprint in the online fan creation world. Enough so that there are probably legions of material buried within the internet regolith.
Okay, I won't go into this too much because I don't want to expose myself. But what I will say is basically this was a project where two of my now good friends, they did an open casting call and they cast everyone in the Percy Jackson series and Heroes of Olympus series. So a lot of these people now are basically like the canon voices in my head. Like whenever I read the Percy Jackson books, I
Interesting.
hear these people's voices.
That's
because
really
they
cool.
really embodied the characters very well. And I had a lot of fun. We basically would just dub comics that other Percy Jackson artists created. We always asked for permission. We would always message them and say, hey, we're a group of fans. We have this like voice acting Tumblr, and we would love to produce your work. And then usually they'd be like, yeah, that sounds awesome. Just like link back to my post, etc. We would dub over. And then eventually we also did a call for writers so that we could write, I guess, like not original scripts, but like we created like Halloween specials and Christmas specials and just fun bonus content that wasn't already out on the internet. And then that was like our own thing. I was cast basically as an extra. We had like a group of extras who would fill in roles that were not, I don't want to say popular enough, but like they weren't prominent enough to be given like a full role. If there was like a comic that had Percy and Annabeth and it also had like Charles Beckendorf or whatever, then we'd be like, okay, we need someone to play Charles for like these 2 lines or whatever. And then we'd like pull from our cast of actors. Once I joined as an extra, they realized I could also edit audio. So then I started editing audio for them. And then eventually they were like, well, actually, you should just become one of the admins. So I became one of the admins.
So this was a whole production.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then the 3 of us ran this group for 3-4 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing. There is a non-zero chance that I've stumbled across these dubs.
Probably.
on
We
my
were
time
quite
on the
popular.
internet. Yeah, which is crazy to me,
Yeah.
right?
I have many fond memories of the time I spent creating just fun things with friends, making new friends. We still have our Discord, which no one talks in anymore, but maybe I'll throw this episode in the chat.
Yeah, call them all out.
So that was the impact that Percy Jackson had on me. I just love this world. It's so fun. I feel like the characters, I know them well.
Yeah. You spend enough time in any sort of media and it starts to feel a little bit like a piece of home.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, because I have very strong associations adjacent to Percy Jackson. For me, it's the Killers album Hot Fuss.
Wait, hold on. Am I missing something here? Where does that come from?
So Percy Jackson is very much travel America, see the sights. And so I would often bring Percy Jackson with me on road trips.
Oh.
And my mom had this album.
Likes the Killers, I guess, then.
Yeah, my mom would do a thing where on road trips, she would compile a CD from a Korean site where music was exchanged.
Listen to the Hardy Boys Undercover Brothers episode.
Listen, Korean copyright law is very different. If you ever watched a Korean game show, it's kind of crazy what they can get away with. Music from Star Wars, music from Mission Impossible, just any American franchise, the Korean copyright system just lets them use it.
Wow.
It's nuts. But anyway, nothing illegal happens. Often these CDs would just be like the top 40 popular songs. And so the Killers got on there a lot. And so I have a strong association with Percy Jackson and the Killers. And a part of me is sad because I know that they're not going to be playing in the new Disney Plus show. But like, I don't know. To me, the vibes match.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
You can make your own fan edits.
Also, 4 Minutes by Madonna and Justin Timberlake.
You know what? I think I have a song like that. I think it's a Rihanna song, though I can't remember.
But you guys know what I mean, right? The intersection in a
Yes.
moment of
Yeah,
childhood where this series consumed your life, but you're also still consuming, music on the radio and such. And so you start to associate these two things with each other until you can't unassociate them. And every time I listen to the Killers, I think about Percy Jackson.
Aha! Rihanna, only girl, parentheses, in the world.
Yeah!
It just happened to be on when I was deep in the paint in the Percy Jackson verse.
You got any of those, Victoria?
No.
Dang. Well, thanks for listening to Nostalgia Club.
This is interesting, though. The fact that Jino and I have this thing, and Victoria, who's so deep in, Percy Jackson sphere for so long, is it just, maybe it's just the sheer volume of your engagement with it and how much of it was
I have
fan creation?
too many other associations with Percy Jackson. I don't know. To be fair, when I was in middle school and high school, I didn't listen to a lot of pop music. I listened to mostly movie soundtracks. That's really cool, though.
I remember one specific road trip where we went to the Hoover Dam, and I was reading the third book again for like the billionth time. And I was like, oh my God, it'll be just like Percy Jackson.
Yeah.
They made the Hoover Dam from Percy Jackson. Very disappointing. A very disappointing place.
You didn't
it's
find
just
the
a big
damn
wall.
You didn't find the damn snack
There
bar?
was no snack bar.
Dang.
Couldn't find it.
Rick.
This was the beginning of a slow and painful realization that many of the locations described in the Percy Jackson series, based off of real national landmarks, are not completely accurately described. To aid the story, in reality, Percy should have gone splat when he jumped off that arch. Still a great series, though.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun, though, and kind of nice. Just this idea of, like, you could take these, like, big monuments in America and be like, you know what? I'm just going to swap the geography around a little bit and do what I want.
Scoot it over here a little bit.
Yeah. Why not?
The kids will buy it. How many kids have been to all of these monuments?
Jino has.
Not
Gino was
not all of them.
fact-checking it.
It's an interesting way to learn about the basic geography of America through this fantastical Greek god myth story.
That is an interesting pairing, though. Because part of the whole book has to do with that, like, whatever the most, culturally loud civilization in the West is after Greece is where all the gods sort of take their cues from.
Yeah, I am interested about how they'll adapt that one specific piece of lore into the Disney Plus show, because I know Rick regrets it, that specific piece. Because it's very, what's the word? Americentric? The idea that America is like the best country, the best culture. When no, there's no best culture. Culture is just culture.
Yeah.
It's a big living organism made up of human beings and systems and all sorts of things.
But you have to justify the Greek gods here somehow. So how are they going to do it? Who knows? You'll know, listener. Victoria, did you ever engage in any Percy Jackson roleplay?
No, I didn't.
Curses. Next topic. I tried. Scary. It's a scary time talking to strangers on the internet. I was not brave enough to do it.
I guess I didn't officially roleplay on the roleplay forums or whatnot, where you do the typical text roleplay stuff, but I guess I roleplayed by voice acting characters from the Percy Jackson universe.
A more structured, produced roleplay.
Actually, every actor who was in our project, we made them their own Ask blogs for each character.
Gosh.
So that they could individually produce their own stuff as well.
And you think you can't be part of Athena's cabin. Come on, what is this?
I mean, it wasn't my idea.
But you were still part of the process. Come on, Jino and I are over here hey, you have a song that reminds you of... And we're like, yeah, songs. Victoria's I was a part of a 4-year operation creating...
I really can't take credit for all of it because it wasn't my idea to create it.
But you were in the stuff.
You were in the...
You were oiling the gears.
Deep in the paint.
I was standing outside the factory peering in. They're making Percy Jackson stuff in there and I want to be in it. And I'd try a door, someone would open and be like, hey, you want to come in? And I'd be like, oh, no, just kidding. No, sir. I'm just looking.
And I was sitting at a Ruby's reading Mark of Athena.
You were across the street what's going on over there? Why is it so loud? Favorite character?
I knew that we were going to ask this question, and so I really had to think about it. I think my top 3 favorite characters, if we're talking just Percy Jackson and not Heroes of Olympus, then top 3 are Annabeth, Rachel Elizabeth Dare, and Talia.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Charles Beckendorf.
Charles Beckendorf
My
is
guy.
great. Yeah.
What a guy. Also, Rachel is incredible.
Rachel is great. She throws a blue plastic hairbrush at the god of time.
I almost said Thanos. Kronos.
Marvel, get out of here.
Who's your favorite character, Michael?
Leo was always very fun to read. I don't know. There's something about his character that, from what I remember distantly, we were talking about some of those books and how it's a ship made up of 3 or 4 couples and also Leo.
Yeah. Although we did, I forgot to mention Coach Hedge. Was that his name?
Oh, yeah, Coach
Oh,
Hedge.
yeah, also Coach.
So 3 couples, Leo, and then your gym teacher, which does not make it better.
I keep trying to think of more... I think it's just Annabeth.
Annabeth's pretty great.
I think it's hard to go wrong.
Greatest moveset, too. Going invisible.
That's true.
Knife. And smarts.
And
yeah.
Wow, yeah.
I love Annabeth.
Excellent skill tree.
Excellent skill tree. Percy's skill tree with the sword and wet. And you know what? Gotta say, I'd rather have smart and invisible.
Yeah, and Annabeth specced into the right stuff. Percy chose like the high-powered beginning stats and was like, I'm sure this will turn into something, right?
God, I wish there was a Percy Jackson video game. I wish
I'm sure they're working on it.
I wish someone would gamify this universe.
It's so gamifiable.
So I can spec into Ares or whatever the heck. Spec into Wine God.
Would you rather have a Percy Jackson game where you play as Percy and the main trio? Or would you rather have, maybe not open world, but you create your own character, your own camper, and you kind of go through the main quest?
Create your own camper.
Yeah.
Absolutely. When I read Percy Jackson, I am not Percy.
Yeah.
I'm just reading Percy.
Yeah.
I would like to be also there.
In the universe. Yeah.
Maybe not where Percy is, because it seems like a lot of stuff happens
Percy
around
goes
him.
through so much.
I'll be Demeter Camper number 5, whose line is, "Oh gosh, Percy, look out!"
Okay, so a thought just occurred to me because I can't remember. We know that Dionysus is like one of the camp counselors because reasons.
It's his punishment.
It's his punishment, yeah.
Yes.
Cursed to deal with
Children.
hormonal children.
A wonderful narrative choice. One of the loveliest characters. Reminds me in a lot of ways of my high school media teacher,
Ooh.
who I credit a lot of like creative, inspiration.
Was your media
towards.
teacher also there as punishment?
Well, if you ask him, no. Well, the effort, I'm sure, could be pretty punishing, but, I appreciated his presence. I'm trying to think now, was there a Dionysus cabin?
Yeah.
Yeah. He has kids.
What are their powers? Are they like, you want to have the best brew you've ever tasted?
So in the original 5, if I remember correctly, there were 2 kids. Percy describes them as kind of embarrassed that like their dad is there. They get along with Demeter because they're good at growing grapes.
It's the twins, right? It says Castor and Pollux are the twins. According to the Riordan Wiki,
Ooh.
the abilities that Dionysus' children possess are they can control plants, strawberry and grapevines specifically. They are capable of causing or curing madness. They may have some power of alcohol and drinks, and they're really good actors.
Nice.
So,
It's also a decent move set. You get a little bit of everything.
That feels almost a little overpowered. If you can just cause madness in anyone.
I'm sure it's scaled.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
But a Dionysus kid protagonist who solves every problem by just inducing madness and then taking it away and was like, hey, that sucked, right? I'll do it again.
Yeah.
No, please don't.
I'll tell you anything. He's getting away, and now he thinks he's a chicken. Again, why I would love to gamify this world, because we can explore characters like that.
Yeah.
If you can pick, what would be your favorite either book or scene from the books, from the first 5 books?
I'm tempted to say the 3rd one because that was my first book. But the Lightning Thief, I don't know. There's a quality of writing in it that I don't think Rick has ever managed to recapture. And that's not saying any of his other books are bad. They're all excellent books. But there's something about Percy's personality and his voice in the first book that is especially refined. I worry that he loses his sassiness, even though he's described as a very sarcastic character, like a very humorous character. He
Sorry,
loses
I just thought about Persassy.
Persassy. He loses that a bit as the books go on, and especially in the Heroes of Olympus, which I think is a result of having too many characters.
Yeah.
But the first book, Sass, is just so good, and his character is so sharp.
Yeah. And then he gets traumatized.
He gets traumatized, and he also gets older and angstier. When you start writing romance, it's adding a different variable to the character.
And it's tough to write.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because, any romance in any scenario, but like writing multiple characters is a tall order enough, right? But like writing a relationship between 2 fictional characters in which you're trying to like match the strange, like, people have a hard enough time living in relationships. And also they're like kids or teenagers or whatever. That's a whole nother ball game.
I mean, I think like maybe it feels a little awkward because Percy is like a teen and he's got the weight of this great prophecy on his shoulders. But he's also like, I just want to like live my life and be like a normal kid. It never bothered me, I guess. I'm a big Percy and Annabeth fan.
Oh, same,
great.
no
They're
doubt.
fantastic.
Are you kidding me? Like, friggin' huge shipping. Like
Percy and Annabeth, huge.
Yeah.
Percy saving Annabeth from the sirens. Big good.
Big good.
Percy coming back when Annabeth thought that he was dead. And then Annabeth
heart squeeze.
Yeah.
Heart squeeze.
What is happening?
We're just yelling.
Oh, like the moment when like Percy like reveals like where his like Styxian weak spot is.
Yeah.
Okay, Jino, off what you said about Percy's voice in this first book. The way this book opens, and like when I first read, The Lightning Thief, it grabbed me from the get-go. Oh gosh, just the skill of being able to create this sense of foreboding and mystery and also mysticism as Percy describes his childhood and as he's been growing, the presence of mysterious forces or figures in his life, as well as just in addition to that mystery of some greater machinations at work that he doesn't understand, just him being a troubled kid with like a single mom and moving from place to place. It's both like accessible and yet like elevated. And at the same time, woven within all of this like very personal exposition is Percy's voice, which is like just so peak in this first book. I mean, Jino, you said it was like first page, and it's true. And it like maintains even throughout that first chapter. It's amazing the economy of exposition and of like emotional conveyance on multiple levels.
Yeah. That's it, because it's efficient.
Yeah.
And it works. And Heroes of Olympus is not quite as efficient. You mentioned that you found Jason perhaps not the most engaging protagonist.
Yeah. And well, it's kind of tough as well because you already have Percy as sort of the archetypal, like, I'm the guy. We were talking last week about the way that the Chronicles of Bredane handles the I'm the guy character. And Percy has his own vibe about that. And it's like, okay, so what do you do with Jason? And there are things you can do, but also like, what do you do with the character like that who is also like, I am also the son of Zeus, the big man. And Jason has character, like I know he does, but his character, that sounds like an insult. It's the hardest to recall. Because I can recall Piper's character better, Hazel, to an extent Frank. Like, it's weird. I remember the least, perhaps, about some aspects of Frank's journey, but I remember his character, I think, more than I remember Jason's.
And Leo.
Yeah. I was talking about how much I love Leo.
I think is the strongest out of the new characters. But no, I agree. I cannot recall Jason's character. I don't remember what he's like.
In terms of Jason's character, I think it's also tough to introduce a brand new character when the character doesn't remember who he is.
That's true.
Yeah. Because it literally...
Is that his personality?
The Lost Hero starts and Jason doesn't know who he is.
Yeah.
He's just like, why? What's happening? Because like Hera's done this whole thing where she swapped Percy and Jason. And so Jason doesn't know what's going on. Going from the Percy Jackson series to the Heroes of Olympus was an adjustment for everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone in the fandom was like, whoa. We went from having a very limited single protagonist point of view to suddenly multiple protagonists, multiple points of view, and a bigger scale of things happening. Because Percy Jackson, it's like we're following Percy's journey. There's one prophecy. Well, I mean, there's a new prophecy every book, but there's one big prophecy.
Yeah.
And there are multiple characters, but all of their storylines are kind of in line with Percy's journey.
Yeah.
To go from that to the Heroes of Olympus, where there's a big prophecy, it involves at least 7 people, and they each have their own backstories that you have to introduce and their own things that are going on, which aren't even revealed until later books. Like, it's a lot to juggle. It took some getting used to. Once I got to know the characters better, I was like, okay, I enjoy hearing from their perspectives. I was really excited when I got to the Son of Neptune because I was like, Percy's back.
Percy's back.
Yeah.
And I will also say, slightly unrelated, but when I read the newest Percy Jackson book, The Chalice of the Gods, it was extremely nostalgic to return to Percy's point of view. Because even in the Heroes of Olympus, when we get Percy's point of view, it's not the same. It's not the same Percy point of view that we get in the original books because it's not written in first person.
Yeah. Which, listen, we've done a lot of Heroes of Olympus bashing, and yeah, there's some problems. But I really liked it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let us disabuse the listener of any notion they may have that we're like, Heroes of Olympus, please, second rate.
I will throw in what I loved the most about the Heroes of Olympus, which was that it expanded on the world of Percy Jackson. I mean, who's going to complain about more Percy Jackson content? But not only did it expand on it, but it also remedied some of the things. I think Rick, in his subsequent books, he's always made an effort to like amend things that he like doesn't quite agree with anymore or like make things better, which I think is really admirable. Just the increase in representation was really awesome for me.
The deep dives that he goes into with a lot of the new characters, it's just honestly very impressive. And I'm absolutely sure he had help. The way that he'll go into whether it's like cultural or even if it's just like referential to a specific spot in America or whatever, which, look, I don't know what it's like to live in Alaska. But I'll take your word for it. Like you said, it's vaster. And the way he handles the vastness while, no one can be perfect, I suppose.
Yeah.
It is no less like a wonderful addition. And also his capacity of creativity, I feel like continues to increase. Everything with like the Roman counterpart to like the Greek camp and how it's like more militarized and like organized as the Romans were.
And there's a city. It's not just a bunch of kids running around in a field.
Yeah.
They have a university by the end.
It feels in line with like some aspects of ancient like Greek mythology and
I
storytelling.
often forget that Greece was not a united state, but a bunch of petty towns and cities that like to squabble and mess with each other. Also, I learned recently that Sparta's win ratio was not great. Totally unrelated. But they were not very good at war.
No, it was like a 50-50 split. I read a bunch of stuff on Sparta from a couple different sources recently, and I'm like, Sparta's bad. 80% slave population, which was high for the time. And their leadership waged war on their own slaves in a terror campaign to prevent, like, I won't go in any more into it because we'd have to put like a huge trigger warning at the top of this episode. But yeah, Sparta bad. Don't idolize.
Sparta bad.
Yeah.
Sparta bad.
The only thing I recently learned about Sparta is that they thought ranged weapons, at least at this point in history, they thought ranged weapons were cowardice. And so they marched on the Athenians in their phalanx, and the Athenians backed up a bit and threw rocks at them. And the Spartans went, oh, okay, we'll turn around and go back to the boat. They turned around, but the Athenians had walked around them and were throwing rocks at them from that direction. This is all to say that the one time anyone tries a phalanx in the Percy Jackson series, it gets immediately wrecked by a bull. So, phalanx,
Oh, that's true.
not a great strategy, I think, in this context at least.
Certainly not for every composition. Especially, what was it? It was like a giant bull, like it was an automaton, right?
Yeah, like breathed fire and such, and then the movie butchered it.
Oh, yeah. As long as we're talking about the movies, I liked the second one more than the first one. I'll be honest, I feel like everyone in that second movie just looks more tired. Which, valid. But I feel like the second one, they were trying to be a little more faithful to the vibe of the book.
I mean, just from its conception, it was already ruined because they aged up the characters. And the whole point of the books is that Percy is going to turn 16 in a few years.
Yeah, it's a coming-of-age story.
Yeah.
And if you're already of age, it's too late.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was more acceptable, I think, at the time. Like, even at the time, it didn't bother me as much. Right now, I'm like, let the kids do it. We've been reading books about kids and like harrowing situations for so long. So what if it's being rendered in physical form? It's a movie. Let the kid fight the bull. But certainly at the time, it was definitely much more, and this is still around, much more common to see like, here's a 35-year-old human being. We're going to call them 16.
I think they made them 18 in the movie, but they weren't even believable 18-year-olds. It didn't capture the magic of the books themselves.
Yeah, just kind of felt like it was going through a process. You know what I kind of liked? I kind of liked just getting to see, look at the grounds of Camp Half-Blood. Not even like the buildings, because there weren't many of those. It was just like, look at all these trees. Look at this lake.
Yeah.
It was
This is
definitely
nice.
different than I imagined it. And
Oh,
even in the trailers for the Disney Plus show, I never imagined Camp Half-Blood with so many trees, which I probably should have because they do describe lots of trees, but I kind of
They
imagined
have
it as
so
an open
many-
ground.
Well, they have so many dryads and nymphs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, I think that's fair to say, like, there should be, and I think there was, like, a good portion of it that was just open land, which makes sense.
Yeah. You got to play capture the flag somewhere.
Here's my bar. Here's my bar where I'm like, if they get this, and I'm
Okay.
sure that they will just because of the capacity with which, digital like screen projection or CG has come, they can create whatever sets they want, it seems, if they get access to the right stuff. But in the Sea of Monsters movie that they made, they replaced Luke's cruise ship because he was sailing around on a giant freaking cruise ship, which was cool.
Yeah.
And he had a freaking Dracon or Dracon in the basement. In the movie, they clearly did not have the budget to get access to a cruise ship.
Is it a yacht?
It's a yacht.
Yeah.
It's just, it's just a little boat.
We need the Princess Andromeda.
Yeah. I'm excited to see if we reach such a point in which I get to see the Princess Andromeda rendered in full scale.
Yeah. What a terrifying scene, too, in the book. Just crawling around this abandoned cruise ship, and then all the people come out, and they're just completely zombified. Like, I am at the cafeteria. I am enjoying the food at the cafeteria. And then the kids behind, like, we are at the cafeteria. Like, whoa.
And then when it reappears in the beginning of book 5, when they have...
As like a troop transport or something? Oh, no, when they tag it with Charles.
Yeah.
My boy Charles.
Yeah. A great, like, opening action scene where they, like, go to blow up the ship. And, like, the specific note that, like, all the people, all the humans that were, like, enthralled on this ship are now all gone. And it's like, they got eaten.
Yep.
Those people, they definitely got eaten by monsters. Yeah. Okay, so what ages... Victoria, you said you, like, grew up with Percy.
Yeah, I was 12 when I
You were,
read
like,
the
12.
first book.
And Jino, what age were you when you first read these books?
When did the fourth book come out? What year did the fourth book come out? Because that'll help me determine this.
2008.
So I must have been 10 or 9.
Ah.
Because I only read the third, and then I was around for the fourth to come out.
Victoria, you seem to have kept up with it consistently. Although, to be fair, you read very fast. So when you say you grew up with Percy, do you mean like...
Like when the Heroes of Olympus books were coming out, I was in high school.
Oh,
I guess I was older than Percy. No, I was still
Because Percy was 16?
Yeah, I was still similar in age to Percy. And then after the Heroes of Olympus was when I went to college. And I stopped reading them for a bit then.
And then Jino, what was your scale of time in which you read them?
I read them up through high school, and then college was my Magnus Chase years. I skipped the Kane Chronicles because Egyptian mythology didn't really call to me.
Yeah.
And I haven't picked up the Apollo Trials because Apollo doesn't
Apollo,
really
yeah.
call to me.
I was really resistant to reading the Trials of Apollo. I was like, no, I think I'm over these books. And then, I don't remember, I must have seen something on the internet. Oh, I think I know what it was. It was something that related to some of the Heroes of Olympus characters that come back in the Trials of Apollo. So I wanted to read what happened.
Is this, to avoid spoilers, character gets got?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which character? Oh, I didn't know that.
Sorry.
I'm not disturbed.
Okay.
But the Trials of Apollo books grew on me. And Apollo as a character grew on me. I still don't really like Apollo that much. But, he went through a lot. He went through those trials. So, I think personally, I was more invested in the Trials of Apollo for when some of my favorite characters show up again.
Sure.
So when Nico and Will show up and Piper and Jason. And I think, Percy always cameos at least one point. Percy is always there to be like, I will help you with one small thing, and then I will go back to my life because I'm tired. Yeah.
That is Percy's deal. That's what he does in Magnus Chase.
Yeah.
Like pops in and he's like, swimming? And then he leaves. Or like boating or whatever.
Yeah, it's literally just to be like, Percy's alive. He's doing great. But we're not going to bother him because he's been through a lot.
And he's still with Annabeth.
Yeah.
He's still, don't worry. No one worry. He's still with Annabeth.
Listen, they went to Tartarus and back. If they broke up, like Percy really screwed up.
If they broke up, Rick would have to go into hiding.
Yeah.
You would have to like change his name and address.
Yeah.
I would personally be bummed.
And that's why he's going into hiding.
I can't disappoint Michael Keane.
He's bummed.
Oh, no.
Pull it from the shelves.
So, circling back around to the ages at which you were, this may or may not have to do with, the ages you were when you read these books, but I imagine it would. It doesn't necessarily have to be like your favorite, but is there any one of these books that you felt like spoke to you personally in a way? I know it's tough because boy, it's a bunch of characters getting up to hijinks that are very distant from the lives of normal elementary, middle school, high school kids. But was there anything, it could have to do with like the just human relationships between characters or parent-child relationships or anything? That particular one enters into some very personal territory, so you don't have to talk about that.
I do think about sometimes how I wish I would be a half-blood, and then I was like, oh, but I like my parents. Hi, Mom and Dad. Please note that I would not sacrifice one of you to become the child of a god. Please understand that I value you too much for this. For me, I could not tell you why. Perhaps a licensed psychiatrist could. But a lot of the scenes with Rachel, excluding the high octane, throw a hairbrush at Kronos, at Thanos. Kranos. A lot of her scenes are very quiet. Because, she's not a half-blood. She's immortal. And so scenes in her apartment, scenes, driving around on the beach with Percy. I like characters who aren't inherently special. Mundane moments, I guess. And so those moments really spoke to me. And so I guess through that, the fourth book really spoke to me. I can't tell exactly why. Maybe it's because that was the book that I read in real time, because I read it as it was coming out instead of just in retrospect. So I felt like, oh, this is happening now. I'm reading this and it's happening now. I have a thing with last books in series where I'm like, not as good. But
I did really like how he ended the series, though. It made a big impact on me that at the end, Percy asks the gods to acknowledge their children. I've always thought that was such a good way to wrap up the series, where it kind of reminded me in Sky High. In the movie, they talk about here are all these problems that are caused by systemic issues, but at the end they don't fix it.
Yeah.
In Percy Jackson, all of these conflicts between the gods and their demigod children who get caught in the crossfire, Percy does his best to resolve it. Granted, he is a 16-year-old, so it's not the solution to all their problems, which is proven in the Heroes of Olympus, but he makes a very wise choice where he's like, I could choose to be immortal, or I could recognize that Luke was driven to do what he did because he felt so ostracized and lonely in his life of being a demigod. They don't have easy lives. You are literally born and then you are attacked by monsters constantly. You don't get to live a normal life. You don't get to have normal friends. And just making it to the age of 16 was a huge feat for Percy, right? So the fact that he chose to basically call the gods out and be like, hey, you guys caused this, so try to fix it. Yeah. Going back to one of my previous questions, which is what was your favorite book in the series? I think I would still say The Battle of the Labyrinth is my favorite, but I still really enjoy how The Last Olympian wrapped things up.
Yeah. My comment about our last book, I'm like, ooh, it's not because the book's bad. I just don't like things ending.
That's fair, yeah.
I know things have to end. Good things end. Bad things
continue.
Bad things can start good, but they just go and go and go and go and go until they're bad.
Well, follow-up question, because Victoria, you said specifically your favorite book was The Battle of the Labyrinth. Because for me, the fourth one, I remember scenes from it, but most of it's just kind of a blur to me. What about the fourth book for the both of you spoke to you?
The concept of the labyrinth was always very fascinating to me. Like Jino said, Rachel Elizabeth Dare is a highlight in that book. The stuff about Daedalus was really interesting. Daedalus? I don't know how you say his name. The guy who
Daedalus
built the labyrinth, and he gifts Annabeth a laptop at the end, which is cool.
I think one of the reasons I like it is because it is the least linear in terms of events and locations. Because Lightning Thief is one coast to the other coast. And Sea of Monsters is they're going from this place to this place. The Labyrinth can spit you out anywhere. Percy ends up on Ogygia.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this is when he meets Calypso.
Calypso. I almost said Circe. I was like, that's the wrong island's magic
Other
island
book.
lady. Yeah. It's just tragic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Leo does get back to her, which I appreciate. Because I really like Calypso's character.
She really got the really short end of the stick.
Yeah. She adds a layer of gray to the whole gods, titans thing. In a way, I guess she's very similar to the demigods in that regard. Because she's just sort of caught in the middle, like the demigods. And the demigods are like, we're just here, man. We're just trying.
I think you nailed it on the head. The gray, because, all titan evil, all gods, I guess technically good. Well, they're kind of jerks. Was it Prometheus that shows up in book 5?
Oh, I don't know.
He has his big suit and he sits down and he's like, listen, guys, I did you a solid once, but now you got to do me a solid and surrender to Kronos. Was that Prometheus? The gods sucked. They plucked my liver out.
Yes, he is in
The
The Last Olympian.
He's like the negotiator. He's who Kronos sends to try to negotiate with Percy and the other half-bloods.
Right, he said, Prometheus joins Kronos in the battle against the gods and is sent as a messenger by the Titans in an effort to persuade the demigod forces into surrendering.
So characters like that, the graying of the pure Sauron evil, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, they find Pan in book 4 too?
Yeah.
Oh,
Gosh,
yeah.
so much happens.
Pan friggin' dies.
But then Grover becomes the Lord of the Wild.
He's not doing a great job.
Grover.
Grover, listen, man. The best thing you can do for the world right now is just wipe us all out.
Humanity is the virus. That is one interesting thing that I do remember from, I forget when it would have been, but it's like, what would Kronos do with a win? And it's literally like, return the earth to a more primal state.
What does that mean?
Beats me, man.
One thing, I guess, and again, Rick did state that he regrets this, but there's a lot about how Kronos wants to destroy specifically Western civilization and how we need to defend Western civilization. So all the other civilizations, they're fine, whatever. So a more primal state is, I guess,
Uh-oh. Next topic, please. I don't remember that stuff about Western civilization.
It's not really hammered in, but it is mentioned occasionally as, I guess, a through line from the first book when they mention it.
It sounds like it's used transitively as like the god's base of operations.
Yeah.
Well, you know, none of us are perfect, and we do the best we can at the
Yeah.
time that we do the things that we do. And it's nice that Rick, as you would hope anyone would be able to, you know, analyze the things that we've done and reframe and adjust.
It's nice that Rick takes reader feedback
Yeah, huh?
and actively consults with consultants to improve his stories.
Yeah.
Now that I'm thinking back to it, maybe The Titan's Curse is my favorite book. I don't know, because I was just thinking about like
All
the
the
scene where
Hunters of
Percy
Artemis.
holds up the sky.
Oh, yeah. Also, real quick, Annabeth was holding up the sky
Yeah.
for days. Something about the weight displacement on the sky must really make it like a real pain to do for a long time,
Yeah.
but possible to do for I don't know what. Yeah, how brutal, huh?
Yeah, and also like The Titan's Curse introduces Nico and Bianca, but The Titan's Curse is so sad. I don't want to say it's my favorite book.
It's the book that feels the most different from the rest because Annabeth's not there and Grover's not there.
Yeah.
Grover is there. Is Grover there?
No, wait.
Yes? No.
Grover, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Grover. I'm sorry, Grover. Because it really is just like a Nico, Bianca, rest in peace, Zoe, rest in peace, Percy adventure.
Yeah.
And also Annabeth's dad's there. And the lack of Annabeth, you really feel the lack of Annabeth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Percy's dumber because of it. Less
People
competent.
die because Annabeth isn't there. It's also Luke's presence in that book is very different because, and we get glimpses, it seems, he's like in the process of undergoing full Thanos possession, it seems, right?
Thanos.
Gosh dang it.
Got him.
Kronos possession. Gino was on it this whole episode and I died.
Perfectly balanced, as
I
all
think
things should be.
I think it's because like the first book that Talia's in, and Talia and Annabeth were good friends with Luke.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the focus is on how their perception of Luke is different than how Percy perceives him.
Yeah.
Because Percy is like, yeah, Luke was a cool guy, and then he betrayed me in the first book, so I don't like Luke. But Annabeth is like, Luke used to be a big brother to me, and so I can't let go of the time we had together. And then Talia also similarly has to wrestle with it, but she like just woke up from being mummified in a tree. So
Yeah, she's still sleepy.
yeah.
Book 3 is about family. I mean, they're all about family, but book 3 is about specifically,
Yeah,
it's
because
more Annabeth's family,
Yeah.
Zoe's family.
Zoe's family, Nico and Bianca, their sibling relationship. I think book 3 really is about family and like
Family,
repairing family. If you had to select a theme for each book,
Oh, that's tough.
I think if I'm just going to go straight off the cuff, and
Yeah.
I don't think these are completely accurate at all.
No, that's what
If
this
3 is
episode's
family. I think 4 is love.
Mm.
about. Yeah.
I think 1 is about, I don't want to say found family, but it's about like finding your place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then 2,
Two's tricky.
the big theme in 2 is Tyson. It's about having a brother you didn't expect and you don't want and you don't
Yeah.
like, and then trying to build that into a healthy relationship.
Family.
Family.
Fast and the Furious.
2 is about like finding family that you didn't know you had, and 3 is about repairing family.
Yeah.
Or losing it.
Or losing it.
Like Luke is lost almost entirely, his freaking body's taken over.
And then 5 is about New York City!
Yeah!
The lights, the sounds, the city that never sleeps,
The
New
war
York!
crimes.
Time to list off a bunch of New York bridges that were going to blow up.
Yeah, bit of a hitch in the giddy up there where it's like, it's okay, the mortals won't know. We had Morpheus put them all to sleep. Nobody's gonna know. Whoops, we blew up all the New York bridges.
But it's okay, the mist will fix it.
Mist is hard at work in these books.
All the mortals wake up, they're like, what the heck happened here? Hurricane?
I don't know.
A hurricane made of chloroform swept over New York. Victoria, we've already talked about how deep in that paint you were. So deep in the Percy Jackson and the Olympians paint. What were your emotions reading the latest book in the series, The Chalice of the Gods?
It made me emotional.
What were your emotions?
Your emotions were all of them, and a lot of them.
Yeah. First of all, give Percy a break, man. This poor kid has been through so much. The Percy Jackson, The Chalice of the Gods is about Percy. He's 18. He's about to graduate high school. He needs to apply to college. And unfortunately, he can't just get into college after saving the world twice. He still has to get letters of recommendation from 3 gods. So he has to go on 3 quests. So I assume there will be 2 more books in this sub-series. But there's also just a lot of moments of just Percy, Annabeth, and Grover hanging out that
awesome.
Scratch
are
an
just
itch.
nice. Yeah, they're just going to like a smoothie shop. They just hang out. It's like Percy, he's going on quests, but he actually like gets to go through a normal school day without anything happening. And it's just like on the weekends or after school is when he's doing the questing stuff.
Oh, that's cool.
And he still gets to go home and have dinner with his mom and his stepdad, who are just awesome. Sally's writing a book. Good for her. I love that for her.
It's called Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief. Is it?
No. Well, I don't know what they don't
called
say.
the BFG.
In the Trials of Apollo, Percy has a little sister. So in this book is when Sally tells Percy, hey, I'm pregnant, which is a very funny scene because Annabeth gets it immediately. Annabeth's like, oh, you're not having wine, you're pregnant. And then Percy's like, oh, Mom, it's so interesting that you're not having wine today. And Sally's like, yes, so there's something I wanted to tell you. And Percy's like, my mom is going to die. Like he thinks she has like some horrible disease. And she's like, no, it's fine. But I'm pregnant. And then they all wait because I think they're worried that Percy will react badly, you know, like he's been an only child his whole life. But it's also because Annabeth, when her dad started having kids with like his second wife, he didn't get married in the first place. Sorry.
His second person.
Because Athena, they weren't even like romantically linked. She was just like, you're very smart. Have a brain, baby.
Yeah.
When Annabeth's dad got married and had kids, she didn't have the greatest relationship with her stepbrothers. And so there's just like mixed feelings about like your parent is having another kid. They're not going to be a demigod. They're going to be a regular kid. They're not going to have the same life that you had, etc. But Percy's just so excited and he's like so happy. But he's also like, he's sad because he's like, I'm about to go to college. Like, I'm not going to get to be there for like this younger sibling that like, I'm not going to be there to change the diapers and like help my mom out and like do all these things. But he's also like, I got to go to college with Annabeth. It was just really nice. And it was like a return to Percy's point of view, but he's not as stressed out. He's not going through it.
That's nice.
Yeah.
It's a little catharsis.
Yeah.
Then.
It felt very like healing. Like he gets to go to college. It's like a big deal. Now that he's closer to 18, the monsters aren't gonna like come for him anymore. Like he literally like graduates from camp. Like Grover's like kind of sad because he's like, it's your guys' last year at camp and you don't need to go to Camp Half-Blood anymore because it's safer out in the world for you. So yeah, it was just nice.
Years and years, perhaps decades. Decades? Of Percy Jackson? No.
Not decades,
Not
but
decades.
like the first book came out in 2005. So
We're approaching decades.
Wow.
Wow.
Thanks, Rick.
Thanks, Rick.
Thanks, Rick.
Listener, thank you for listening to us go on this crazy ramble, these unplanned and chaotic spew of words and emotions. I hope it was somewhat entertaining, and I hope you go back and reread some Rick Riordan verse books.
I'm definitely going to.
And thank you for listening to Nostalgia Club Season 2.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, huh? Wow.
Well, all right. Those of you stuck with us, we appreciate it. We're going to do a recap episode at some point. We don't know when because we're
sometime in
busy
the next
people.
year.
Yeah.
Yeah. But hey, look forward to that. Who knows what we'll include within it? Could be anything. Could be anything at all. If you've listened to our last recap episode, sometimes we can go really off the rails.
Yeah.
This has been great. How about this?
Good season.
Good season.
Good season.
Good soup.
Good. Look at us three. Look at us three doing a podcast.
Who would have thought?
Who would have thought? Until next time, keep a blue plastic hairbrush in your bag. You know, just in case. Just in case you gotta throw it at
you meet
Kronos.
Thanos. In case you meet Thanos.
Yeah, you know, that guy from Percy Jackson, Thanos.
Thanos, classic Percy Jackson villain.
Yeah.
I loved it when Luke turned into a giant purple Josh Brolin.
Thank you for listening to Nostalgia Club. If you enjoyed the episode, follow us on Twitter @_Nostalgia Club and on Instagram @Nostalgia Club Podcast. Leave a comment, give us a rating, and subscribe. You can also send us an email with your suggestions for what we should review next at nostalgiaclubpodcast@gmail.com.
Until next time, recognize your children.